Welcome back. You remember that I had said at last edition that I was going to continue my conversation with Reverend Laddie Thompson. So we are going to get on that. Reverend Thompson, the last time we spoke, you just concluded your own review of what the Buhari years meant to the identification and dealing with the problem. And in that edition, you have spoken about the fact that as a nation, we are struggling with identifying who the enemy is in this terrorism, extreme violence, banditry, whatever it is that is causing so much insecurity in our country. So I want to ask you a follow-up question that, in your view, what's changed with the emergence of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Okay, somebody from a different part of the country, the southern part of the country. Did that bring any change in the official perspective, identifying who the enemy is? What's your view? Let's start from there.
Well, again, I'm a man who believes in mathematizing the inquiry. And when I look at the captaincy of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in an objective manner, if at all there's any slight improvement, it is practically imperceptible. I'll tell you why I say so. I would have thought, based on his reputation and sagacity political, that when he came in, the first thing he will have done for us is to correct that fundamental crime in a counterinsurgency when you have not definitely and decisively defined the enemy. We thought that any serious-minded medical doctor would immediately find a proper diagnosis so that whatever he says afterwards would show that he knows what he's doing. Whether it's a Boko Haram, Ansaru, Al-Swap, Lakurawa, JNIM, the Mahmuda, or any of these groups, they are not ambiguous about their objectives. They are not. So calling them even that Western coinage, Boko Haram, is detrimental to the future of Nigeria. Now, why am I saying this? The first thing I thought Ahmed Bola Tinubu would do is that we would explain to this country that this terrorist hydra is actually not a religious problem. It takes the eye of experts to draw this out. We are dealing with a supremacist agenda. The supremacist agenda is wearing a religious cover. More than 12 years ago, I mentioned that in the latter hours, it will start killing Muslims as well. When I said that to the current presidents more than 10 years ago, they said, but you pointed out. I said, yes, I'm the one who talked about the Takia, the Kitman, and all these shenanigans. But the truth is, it is actually a supremacist agenda wearing the cloak of religion. Now, I thought that any serious-minded commander-in-chief, the first thing you want us to do is to blow the religious cover. Do you know that if we blow the religious cover of this problem, right now, within 3 weeks, 6 weeks, we would have decapacitated it to a very high degree just by blowing the religious cover.
What do you mean about that? What does that entail, Reverend?
Well, blowing the religious cover, you see, the major power of this global hydra, the major area where it has made progress is in the war of narratives. What it does is that it collapses nations from within by dividing the nation along religious lines. So when you don't allow it to divide the nation along religious lines, when you resist that, what you have will be cooperation between the religions. When you have cooperation between the religions and a cohesive effort can now be, established when the religions cooperate. Now, what does that do? First of all, the recruitment strategy is in trouble. The financials we'll be in trouble. Why? Because a lot of people who are sympathetic to his cause will not be if it loses the war of narratives. But what we have done is that instead of fighting a chemical fire the proper way, we have been trying to use water to drench a chemical fire. So if President Ahmed Tinubu had come in and had said, for instance, look at the policy. You capture terrorists in the fields who have been killing Nigerian army soldiers. Then you take them to one so-called place and you tell us that you have written a policy, a magical policy to de-radicalize them. And then you bring them and put them within, absorb some of them into the Nigerian army. Now, do you see that that reeks of a deliberate strategy? And let me tell you what this opens up President Ahmed Tinubu to. Let me tell you this clearly, very clearly, because this is going to become common knowledge in the days to come. Having looked at his appointments, having watched his refusal to establish the proper procedures of the security architecture, when I look at the political compromises he had to make for him to ascend to the throne, if there's anything, we want to remind people that he himself was actually the first person to suggest to Buhari that there should be a Muslim ticket. Even Muhammad Buhari did not have the nerve to pursue a Muslim ticket. Now, the juggernaut, what we saw him do was that he was able to put in a reputable Christian as a placeholder. And when the time came, this is the person who went back to the Muslim ticket, having prepared ahead for it for decades, obviously. Now, what does this imply? What it implies is very simple. The Emiloko covenant was a public announcement that had many meanings. To the global community, the Emiloko seemed to be a kite that was floated to nations like Turkey, whose activities we are aware of in Nigeria, Iran, whose activities we are aware of in Nigeria, who are supporters of the Hydra. He seemed to be floating a kite to them that, listen, what Muhammad Buhari did not have the nerve to do, I am able to achieve it for you. But let me have my own turn, because my ambition is to be the president of Nigeria. And even if I have to continue your agenda to secure my ambition, I will do this for you. Now, don't forget, when Mrs. Olakuri was killed by the Fulani, Fashion Artist's daughter, if you remember that incident?
Yes.
It was an opportunity for us to see him roar with righteous indignation. But we remember his responses then. So if you join the dots, I don't want Nigeria to be surprised if he ends up being the one to facilitate. I said to you, this is a supremacist agenda. It's not religious. Please do your research, sir. Go get the letters by El Kanemi, Usman Danfodio, in 1804. So you will know that it is not religious. It is supremacist. You are going to ask me what could be the possible profit of a man like Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I believe that he must be one of the wealthiest men in Africa. And if you want to protect wealth into generations, I believe it is better protected under an Islamic republic than a democratic republic.
Okay, Reverend. Okay, let me just interject, just so we can interrogate this a little bit more broadly. So, when we talk about the supremacist agenda, it is something that clearly, the the leaders of thought in the South will not, apparently be a party to you would expect. And when you look at the advocacy in the South, pushing for the restructuring of the country to say that, look, let's have a country where, we can do our stuff and others can do their stuff. All of that could be seen to be some kind of a pushback to a situation where it's being loaded over from the center. And Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is quite very ambitious and wouldn't make any pretension about that, was integral in that advocacy to say, look, let's restructure the country. Let each region, as it were, be able to do what it needs to do. Let us reduce the stuff that we have to do together at the center. Now, my view, and I'll let you respond, Reverend, is that my view is that, Bola Ahmed Tinubu wanted power and he would do whatever he needs to do at the level of getting the support of the North and the South to win an election. But you will have to persuade me that a Bola Ahmed Tinubu will succumb to a supremacist agenda that relegates his own people. Reverend.
I don't think that's very difficult, if you ask me. I told you that on the 12th of July in 2019, we saw his response to the murder of Power Fashona's daughter by Fulani militia. We saw the way he tailored his position, which showed us that his personal ambition obviously overrides any patriotic sentiments that you are talking about. Not only that, if we mathematize inquiry and look into his antecedents, we'll find that there's a tilt towards mendacity. It's a very nice way of saying that he could be economical with the truth in the pursuit of his agenda. Now, the years he has had so far in rulership has not showed any change, drastic change in his character profile, so to speak. And if you remember that he did say then that he was here to continue whatever Buhari was doing, go back into your archives and go utterances.
He said that, and I'm sorry for interjecting, just quickly. I think that is a political statement, Reverend. That's my interpretation. It's a political statement, not to delink himself from the northern interest whose support he needs. But please go ahead, sir.
Okay, that's very good. You can say that, but I'm going to say something to you. I remember I had a meeting with the 6 governors of the southwestern states about 12 years ago. What year was when this man, his last tenure in Ekiti State? What's his name again? He was on that place.
Fayemi.
The late Ajimobi was at that meeting.
Are you talking of Governor Fayemi?
No, before him.
Okay, that would be Fayoshe.
Fayoshe, the petrol. Now, was at that meeting as well. At that security meeting, I made it very clear that the infiltration of the Southwest was already complete as far back as there.
Wow.
The forests were already occupied. The movement of troops was already in place. Some of the terror attacks carried out in northern Nigeria, it was leaders who were stationed in southern Nigeria that were going across to northern Nigeria to execute terrorist activities, to lead teams, as far back as that time. Now, if the shoestring budget that we had operating on the platform of religious liberties from the Khan position, if we could gather all that information and see all that, and I remember that meeting, I even suspect satellite imagery of the movement of these people was even available at that time. Now, if people in political office, leadership at that time knew all this, are you trying to tell me that any of this was concealed from the Jagaban? Now, I'm asking us a simple question. The few years in between here, are we saying, based on the strength of the Southwest. The Southwest is supposed to be the custodian of religious liberties in Nigeria, you ask me.
Yeah.
But we are dealing with somebody who left Nigeria, went to Turkey. We all know what Turkey's role is on the global stage. Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, I don't think makes any great secret. It is even said in circles that he believes that he's the Mahdi. We know the exchanges between his country and this country. Now, why on earth would you refuse to decisively, name the terrorist, giving room for you to continue what Buhari started with Turkey? Now, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
If I look at his track record, talking about a man who, when it comes to education, there's so much obfuscation all over the whole place. In fact, somebody was cracking a joke the other day, not a very expensive joke, because we are dealing with the president of the country here, that who am I? I'm 74 years old, my junior sister is 84, and my eldest daughter is 63 or something like that. And it did dawn on me that our president does not have a track record for honest dealing or truth-telling within the country, not globally. Now, if we look at that character profile and we look at the fact that there's a lot of wealth that has been built up, is it impossible that a man would rather guard his wealth into generations than try to go into something that will not protect his wealth? Because I can assure you that if I was given an option, if my priority was protecting a few $1 billion, for instance, and I want my great-great-grandchildren to meet that money, I will sue for an Islamic republic. Why? Because the classification systems between rich and poor is better defined than in a democratic republic where there's greater fluidity.
Okay, Reverend.
Rule out that possibility.
Okay.
Is it possible to rule it out?
Well, I will leave it there, because clearly you have greater depth in these things than myself, and I don't make any pretensions about it. I'm trying to limit myself to the things, that are in the open, to make an argument. And that's why, and I don't dismiss your thesis, it's something that requires quite a lot more reflection. But I wanted to also ask you that, so in line with what I said before, many people in the southern part of this country, even in the middle belt, and now eventually even in the core north, are beginning to welcome and embrace some of the ideas of restructuring, namely, for example, state police. Now, I felt that that the president was not bullish enough on the question of state police, because now it's over 3 years. I felt it's something that he could have done in his first year, and he did quite some few things. I mean, when he picked the reform bills, the tax reform bills, and the National Economic Council that is composed of governors said, no, we don't want it. The man said, no, it's going to happen. So he was bullish. So I have said publicly that the president was not bullish enough on state police. But guess what? We have now gotten to the point where he has made a significant move. State police is going to happen, probably, even within a year. Who knows? But so the question is that he's pushing those things that are restructuring the country. Is pushing devolution of powers that will take powers away and resources away from the center to the regions or the subnationals, as the case may be. That doesn't sound to me like something that can redound to a theocratic, Islamic-based supremacist agenda, Reverend Thompson.
Thank you. Again, I had a conversation with the late Ahmed Joda on this issue of state police. And I remember that I too was very enthusiastic, like the typical Southerner was, until he educated me his days in Ibadan. He spoke to me about the days of state police, and he pointed out to me the degree of corruption that was available in the so-called native authority. I can't remember what they were called then. That was the late Ahmed Joda.
Mm-hmm.
So when I listened to him, I remember that I had to temper my expectations. Now, if you ask me, this kind of moves are what I call distractions. Let me explain what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
When you want to control men, there are two major things, toggles, that are used in the conditioning of masses. The dread of pain and the anticipation of pleasure. You see, the fear of pain is more powerful than pain. That's why when you weaponize poverty, you do something to a people, which has been done. Secondly, when you make people anticipate a pleasure, they are themselves will begin to build castles in the air. What I'm saying is that fact for fact, when we look at his maneuverings politically, we seem to be dealing with a maestro who understands human nature, who understands compromise. Now, if we were dealing with a visionary leader, which is what Nigeria needs right now.
I have an idea, what the answer might be, but I hope it to ask you. Now, Pastor E. Adeboye has been very consistent lately in trying to make a position that, look, what we have to do as a nation, people and government, is to go after the sponsors of terrorism. I think he said that on a number of public occasions, including recently in Washington, D.C., where he spoke at an event where he was honored. I said that, look, we have to go after the sponsors of terrorism. That the sponsors, regardless of how influential they are, those are the people that government should go after. I want to ask you, Reverend, do you think that the Bola Ahmed Tinubu government has the courage to go after the sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria? Last question. And I'd like you to give me a summarized answer because of our time.
Definitely, Bola Ahmed Tinubu has the courage, but does not have the incentive. Obviously. Secondly, when I listened to Pastor Adeboye's speech in Washington, I couldn't make the meeting, but I was around. There was only one little discordant note in his address, which has been consistent. The American intervention was repeatedly captured by Pastor Adeboye as America wants to attack us. In northern Nigeria, the Christians were saying, America wants to rescue us. You see, to the untrained ear, you may listen to his speech and not pick out that particularity. But when he kept reporting that America wants to attack us and have advised the government, he does what he means, don't let them attack us. The message that goes to the global community is that Donald Trump's American intervention is unwanted in Nigeria. It is illegal. It is undesirable. And it could not have been a Christian genocide, really, if the speech pattern of one of the foremost leaders of the church in the country consistently asserts that America wants to attack us. I didn't understand that. And if I had an opportunity, this is the question I would have loved to raise for him, interrogate. Because saying that we should go after financiers of terror is stating the obvious. But what I don't understand is that as a church leader, did he see the American intervention as a divine intervention to save the lives of Christians in his primary constituency? Or did he really see it as an act of aggression against the sovereignty of Nigeria, totally severed away from the devaluation of human worth and the abuse of religious liberties.
It did say, Reverend, because I was also at the event. I think the summary that I took out of his comment was that America should get some kind of global efforts going to help Nigeria deal with the insecurity. And I think if you look at that speech, which was over 30 minutes, you wouldn't miss that aspect. That he said that, look, as a matter of fact, he called on other countries, other European countries, United Kingdom, Switzerland, to join America to help. I think it was very clear on one thing, Reverend, that America should help Nigeria, but that America should actually not be the only one helping us, because I was also there at the event. Reverend.
Thank you. I wouldn't want to push the point. You know that Pastor Adeboye is a father to all of us. He's somebody that I respect a lot. He's a person that I admire myself. However, when it comes to the bloodshed that's going on in the country, I find out that we owe Jesus Christ a degree of objectivity. And I have access to foreign assessments of his speech in Washington.
Okay. You and I are united in the view that, yes, there is genocide in Nigeria. Is the reason why we fought in the United States, when I was the executive director of the Christian Association of Nigerian Americans, to get the Boko Haram to be designated. I must let you know that Pastor Adeboye was the one that asked us to do that job. But thank you for coming to Inside Sources, my brother and respected security expert. And thank you for your voice. Thank you for the brilliance and the incisive analysis that you always bring. And thank you for coming to Inside Sources once again.
Pleasure has been mine.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail. It means Nigeria will win, partly because we will be talking about the major issues. Thank you for watching. My name is Laolu Akonde. And by the grace of God, I'll see you at the next edition.